Do you need to add string compensation at the bridge saddle for fretless bass? First off, if you're not adding any fret lines or side position markers to your fingerboard, then everyone pretty much unanimously agrees that you do not need to compensate the bridge saddle. The reason being is that with no markings on the fingerboard, then the player has to figure out where the correct pitches are, right? Compensating the bridge saddle is not going to intonate the notes because there's no markers that you're intonating, okay? In that case, if you add string length or subtract string length through compensation, you're not really compensating the instrument, you're just changing the scale length. So it doesn't hurt, but it's unnecessary and it doesn't help either. So if you are putting fret lines all the way across your fingerboard or side position markers being like fret lines or dots, then opinions were much more split on whether or not you should compensate your bridge saddle for this fretless bass. Let me share with you the arguments for both sides. The people who advocate for compensating the bridge saddle on a fretless bass with position markers say that anybody who picks up your instrument, whether it's a beginner or advanced player, if they press their finger at the 1st fret or 10th fret, or especially as you get up here, those notes should be in tune at the precise position marked, right? So at the 12th fret, at that spot, it should be in tune. If it was not in tune, then that would be a measurement error on the builder, right? Either they didn't compensate properly or they didn't put the fret line or position marker in the correct place. Makes sense, right? Advocates for no bridge saddle compensation think that a fretless bass player needs to develop the skill and ear to play in tune through careful practice, listening while you're playing, and adjusting your fingers appropriately. They also point out that hundreds of years of orchestra instruments have had no bridge compensation. In fact, those instruments, the bridge is completely movable. Now, of course, there's a correct way to place a bridge on an orchestra instrument like a violin, but I think the argument stands that it's the responsibility of the player to listen and develop the skill to play in tune through careful practice. So which is it? I was pretty torn at this point in my research. I wanted to add position markers to help make the instrument more accessible and easier to play for anybody, but also didn't want those position markers to be leading people astray and make it harder to advance on an instrument because it was out of tune. So the only way that I could answer the question, compensate the bridge or not compensate it, is to test it. And this is what I did. One way to test is to build an instrument and try something out and then see if it worked or not. But I didn't want to leave anything up to chance like that and risk ruining an entire instrument that I built. So I built a very simple tool that you can build and test yourself. Now the disclaimer is that this is specific to the bass that I'm building, which is an ukulele bass, so specific to this scale length and specific to the type of strings that I use. So a different string set or a different scale length may yield different results. So you can very easily make one of these measuring sticks and check out for yourself, test it for yourself before you go through the time to build one of these, right? I have an entire video explaining how to build and use one of these tools to measure the string compensated needed for each string at the bridge saddle. And I'll link that video hopefully up here and down in the description below as well. So I'm not going to go too in depth, but basically what you do is you string each string up and then you're going to play the 12th fret harmonic and then press the string down at the 12th fret, and then you're going to measure the pitch at each of those, right, the harmonic and depressed, and compare it. If depressed it is playing sharper than the harmonic, then you need to compensate by adding length. If you fret and it is flatter than the harmonic, then you need to compensate by decreasing the length of the string, right? So that's the basic rundown. When I tested this with each string individually. You could also make one of these with four strings, but I only had a small stick. So I tested each string one at a time. I actually found that when I pressed it exactly on the line, it was the exact same pitch as the 12th fret harmonic. So that means no compensation is needed. Now remember again, disclaimer, that's my instrument, my scale length, my strings, okay? But no compensation needed at all for all 4 strings. Super surprising for me. I thought I'd have to compensate. Now I put a small nail down in this fret line and did the test again and actually found all of the pitches to be sharp, which would have meant I needed compensation. And then when I took the fret out, right, that nail, and pressed it again, I didn't need any compensation. So that was super, super interesting for me. Now, when the nail is there, I have to press the string back a little bit, right? So that it bends over the nail. So something about pressing the string down and bending over a fret or something makes it go sharp compared to when I was just pressing it down on that line. Now, I also got to see that pressing it down and just going like this, not even moving my finger, just having my finger down and kind of like rolling it forward or back, I was able to make the pitch sharper or flatter. So I had to be very accurate when pressing it down and kind of just use the tip of my finger there, which really isn't how you're going to naturally play. You're playing like this, your hand hanging around the side of the instrument, and you're going to lean your hand forward or back to make those adjustments on the fly. But pressing it down on the fret, if you're using good technique, which is what your goal is, then it will be in tune. So my question was answered. No string compensation at the bridge saddle. I hope this video helped you decide if you have to compensate your fretless bass or not, or at least gave you the tools to figure it out for yourself. And remember that every new instrument that you build that's a different scale length, or if you're setting it up with a different set of strings, I recommend you test it before you do all of that work just to make sure that you don't mess it up. Happy building, good luck.